Instead of doing a meditation tonight, I'm just going to do an opening prayer, and then we'll get into the questions and stuff. Dear God, thank you so much in gratitude for your love, for your guidance and your direction. Help us on our journey. Teach us to look within and realize that each and every one of us has a story. Each and every one of us is special. Each one of us has talents and gifts. Teach us not to hide them, but to be able to use them for your betterment, to use them to help others around us. Teach us to realize how special our journey is and to be open to where the journey leads us. We ask this in your name. Amen. Okay.
All right, so tonight we're in a special conversation. I get to ask Vince lots of questions. If you have a question that you want to ask Vince, feel free to put it in the chat and we'll make sure we get to it before we sign off. Someone mentioned the inner child, and Vince, you have taught that for a few years. And I believe you told me at one time there were 1,800 women that went through it. And how many guys went through the inner child?
About 800.
Okay. So Vince, how did you start with the inner child and family sculpturing? Is that correct? Am I using the right term?
Well, it all goes back to my own recovery. My therapist, way back in 1984 and 85 and 86, took me through the inner child process and also did my family history, my family sculpting. And after that, I worked with him and I learned how to do the process. So in 1987, I started it with 6 men as an experiment, and it went over really well. And then from there, I developed it. And then from 1987 up to 2014, like you said, almost 1,800 women and 800 men went through the process. And it's interesting. A lady in a wheelchair came to visit me today, and she came in and she says, "I have a photograph to show you, Vince." And it was a photograph of the group she was in way back in 1998. God, was I young back then. It was totally, but it was really neat to be able to see those people and they're connected to her. She kind of showed us who she was and what she carries that picture with her all the time, because it meant so much to her. You know, and she still comes to starting point. She's still connected with starting point. And it's interesting, she was telling me today that out of the 10 women that are in her group, 6 of them still get together after all these years. And so many other groups have told me that too. They develop bonding friendships with each other. It's pretty neat. You know, so it's a powerful process. It's beautiful. I stopped doing it. I went and did it on the Zoom a couple of times with a couple of people in here. But then I actually had to stop the process because doing the family sculptings was really burning me out. And I got to a point where I just didn't have the energy to do it anymore. But, you know, I still do it individually with people to help them through it, but it's a little bit different than it was when I did it in a group process. So that works out really well. But I believe very deeply in the inner child concept because there is a little child inside of each and every one of us that wants to have a voice. I know my little Vinny always wanted a voice. He never had one. And now my little Vinny has a voice. Because so many times we're never able to express our feelings. And the big thing the group did for me and did for a lot of people was it allowed them to have feelings. It allowed them to be able to express their feelings and not hold them in anymore. We also learned that feelings are just feelings. They're not right or wrong. It's okay, whatever you have. So I love the process. I think it's pretty neat. That's one of the reasons why I wrote my book on learning to value your childhood. Your history is your teacher, because I really believe if we have the courage to go back and look at our history, it is a powerful teacher. There's so many beautiful lessons that we can learn from it. You know, I think the big thing it did for me was, and I share it with people, it taught me to stop looking at my past negatively, to look at it positively, and to realize even the negative stuff, I can learn positive lessons from it. And that's the biggest lesson my therapist taught me years ago. I rest his soul. I love the man. He helped me tremendously. And as a result of him, I was able to share that process with a lot of other people. So I'm grateful. That's where it started.
That's interesting, Vince, because we talked about this earlier, but you continually celebrate your parents, even though I suspect they let you down sometimes. And for all of us that have our dysfunctional family,
I mean, every
how
family
do you
has some.
celebrate it? I mean, you see, I know it's lessons learned and all of this stuff that you talk about. You've talked about it for 3 weeks, but how do we make those?
Well, I think we have to be able to go through a healing process. We look at things in life sometimes negatively because we were taught that. And every family on the face of the earth has some dysfunctionality because we're human beings. Come on. And it's important to be able to know that history allows things to happen. So I learned a lot about my recovery process by going back into my parents' history and my family's history. I'm a real history buff when it comes to that stuff. And I realize more and more I have my father's traits, my mother's traits. I have their characteristics. They're part of me. So how do I turn them and use them in a positive way? So I look at gifts. A good example. I look back on the nuns in grammar school. Now, the nuns in grammar school, they were tough. I mean, I might as well refer to it. Grammar school was boot camp. It was a tough time. But I always was angry and negative towards that. And now I realize something. Maybe they taught me structure, order, and discipline. I'm here, maybe there's some good did come out of it. And maybe we all need a little bit of structure, order, and discipline in our life. We even say in the program, we need good orderly direction. We need guidance. And so maybe they did it in a tough way. Maybe I got some scars from it, but maybe those scars are also things that made me stronger. I don't know. But I don't want to go to my grave trying to look at everything negatively. We live in a dysfunctional world. Everything's got some dysfunctionality in it. Congratulations. And I got to tell you a secret. Please don't tell anybody. Okay, David? Don't tell anybody. The world is dysfunctional. You can't save it. I tried. I tried to fix the world, save the world, and I tried to be on a campaign. And I ended up with 2 addictions and a nervous breakdown. And then I realized something. I just got to work on me. And if I can carry a message to some people I touch in the course of my life, that's it. That's why I said back in the beginning in the prayer, I really believe every one of us has a story. Every one of us has talents. Every one of us has gifts. They're all different. Don't hide them. Share them. And if you touch another human being in your lifetime's a great success. It's simple and it's plain. We all go through a lot. But it's hard sometimes to be able to release the negative and develop the positive. It's the old yin and yang theory. For every negative, there's a positive, if we're able to work towards it. For every defect, there's an asset. Go back and forth on both sides of it. Okay?
So Vince, is that when you need to reach out for help if you can't do it yourself for turning those memories positive?
Well, I think you need help in everything in life. I think the biggest mistake I made, and a lot of people make, is we all try to do it on our own. We try to analyze it. We try to fix it. Guidance and direction is really important. And I realize now how important it is to be connected to other people to help us through the guidance and direction. So the 2 magical words in recovery are help me. To ask for help, to ask for guidance, to ask for direction. It's okay. And by trial and error, you'll learn. It's all part of it. We all try to help each other. How do you think those early founders, and think about this for a minute. I always like smiling about this. 39 recovering drunks got together They put the big book together. They put the 12 and 12 together, Steps and Traditions. And they went through a lot of battles and fights over it. And thank God they were able to put together what they did. And they told us, they said, and what they were doing, really, you think they were sitting there during that meeting in 1939 and saying, we're going to develop this program so we're going to have a lot more 12-step programs? All they were doing was trying not to drink. That's it. And yet what they built, I really was divinely inspired, has mushroomed into 21 different 12-step programs today. And probably going to develop into more. That's a beautiful, beautiful philosophy. And it works. And the problem is, it's so damn simple. That's why it works. And most of us, we complicate, especially addicts. We complicate going to the bathroom. We have to analyze everything. Please take a break.
So I think there are moments in life when we're all sure that we're on the right path, but somehow we trip and find out we're on the wrong path. How do we let go? And I think your favorite words are adapt, adjust, accept. How do we get there from a mistake that we made?
Well, first of all, you have to make mistakes. They're part of life. We have to allow ourselves to be human. There's an old saying, you have to screw up to get up. So the concept is we have to go through a lot of stuff in life. And so, what do? We try things. If they work, they work. If they don't, we have to admit they don't work and move on. And so, we have to constantly be accepting the reality of what is, and then we have to adjust to it. We have to accept it, and we have to constantly be adjusting to everything in life. I mean, right now, I went through this thing with my back. I had to make a lot of adjustments. I could scream and yell at it all day long. It's not going to get better. Whenever we have ailments or things happen in life, you're going to have them. Your life's going to change. So you have to learn them. You have to make adjustments. Going to Zoom instead of going public with the lectures was an adjustment. An adjustment we had to make. Being able to talk in rehabs, which I still do, but I do it on Zoom. I can talk to the patients. Because I don't have the capacity to be able to travel around like I used to travel around like a nut. So literally when I was younger, you could do a lot more. So you make your adjustments constantly in life. And adjustments are part of what life is all about. And the concept is, and we have to accept the fact that things change. And so mistakes are part of it. You have to make a mistake. Admit to the mistake and then move on, learn from it.
Since you make that sound so easy, admit to the mistake.
It's not easy. It's supposed to be hard. Anything that's easy doesn't work. Saying it, I can say it, but going through it, it's another whole ball game. Because we're human, come on. We deny everything before we face anything, so come on. The ego kind of gets in the way, we get a little nutty, and I'm going to do it my way. And, it's a good song by Frank Sinatra, by the way. I'm going to do it my way, but my way doesn't always work. I have to admit it doesn't work. I have to move on, but admitting is the hard part. But many of us can admit intellectually, but can we accept it? Whoa, it's a whole different ballgame. So, trial and error. Isn't that what life is all about? A big part of it. So, see what happens.
And they are along the way to our spirituality?
Well, yeah. I mean, your spirituality is who you are. It's your spirit. We speak to each other through our spirit. It's the gift of who we are as people. So we have to realize the fact that our spirit means to invest in your spirit. And the steps are a good way to do that. Because we go through, there's 11 steps for us just to work on ourselves and find out who we are. And then having done our work, carry a message, share the spirit, put it on the outside. It's all about learning and sharing, learning and sharing. It's a big part of the whole thing. I had to go through all that in my life, I look back when I first 44 years of my life, and I made a hell of a lot of mistakes. Did a hell of a lot of good too. On a personal level, I made a lot of mistakes. On a personal level, I went through a lot of crazy. I'll tell you some stories later on about that. But the bottom line is, it's just some of the stuff we go through in life. So you learn. When I was a priest in Atlantic City, and I was stationed in an all African American parish, I kind of liked being there. And so I figured since it was an all African American parish, I painted the statues in the church black so everybody could identify with them. Of course, the bishop didn't care for that too much, and I had a few suspensions as I went through it, but that was fun.
What is the punishment when you're suspended? I mean, do they make you say mass more times a day, or?
No, you're not allowed to say mass.
Oh, that's right. I
You're
forgot. You
suspended.
can only do it twice. But what did they? What
But
was?
don't tell me I did it anyway. I paid attention to it. So I was a bad boy. When I was stationed down there, it was a great place to be stationed. You know why? Nobody wanted the parish. And the bishop didn't have the guts to come down there. Tough neighborhood, man, I'm telling you. Even when he came for confirmation, I used to tell him to give the kid $1 outside the front. He said, "What for?" "To watch your car." I said, "You want tires when you come out of the confirmation?" And give the kid $1. So he gave the kid $2. I was going to say give him $4, one for every tire, but it's all right. But yeah, hey, come on, it's the world. You learn how to live and adjust to the world that you're in, and realize that it's a fun part about it. And that was a great adjustment for me being down there. It was great. I learned so much about not to worry about stuff. You want to know why I always say don't worry? I mean, I learned.
You drive me crazy when you say.
I learned down here. I used to be tough with myself all the time, and I learned to forget it. Everything finds its way. I'll tell you a story. I like stories. We had I think I told you this before, but we had a wedding in the parish scheduled for 2:00 in the afternoon. I went over to church at 2:00 and nobody was there. So I said, okay. So I used to get upset about that kind of stuff. I went back to the rectory. About 3:45, the doorbell rang. It was the bride with a suitcase and one of her maids of honor. And she asked if they could get dressed in the rectory. So I put her in my room. Let them get ready. Then half an hour later, the groom will arrive and put them in a different room. Now they're in the rectory getting dressed for the wedding. And then the 2:00 wedding we started about 6:30, the 2:00 wedding. Now I don't know how the communications system worked in that parish, but everybody showed up at 6:30. The church was full. I didn't question anything. I said, whatever. So we do a 6:30 wedding. Some of us would get a little nuts over that. In the beginning, I used to, and I said, wait a minute, this is the world I'm in now, right now. Jimmy down the corner, he had the AME church, African Methodist Church, and he had a little problem with Jimmy. He liked to go on dates on the weekend with different girls. So he used to say to me, cover my service for me. I said, sure. So I used to tell people, he had 11 o'clock service, we had 11 o'clock mass. I just told people, we're going down Jimmy's place today. We'll do services down there instead. Okay, so we went down to Jimmy's place. We had services. Everybody adjusted. You learn to adjust to life. Sometimes I think when you're poor and you're down and stuff to that effect, you adjust a lot more to life. It's like sometimes suffering brings different things out of people. It's all part of it. So I learned a lot. I really did. Yeah, I learned a lot too. What's the sense of worrying? Where's it going to get you? You have to look at even rules and regulations and things, and people get nuts after a while. I was in church one day when I was there, and this little lady kept coming to church every day. So way in the back, she was sitting. She never came to communion. She never came up. So one day I went down, I asked her her name. And I said, how come you never come up to communion? She said, I'm not Catholic. Oh, I said, come on up. I'll take care of that. So I brought her up front and got some water, made her Catholic, took care of that. And then I basically gave her communion, and I confirmed her all in one shot. I said, now you're official. You're in. I said, come to communion. What are you going to do? It's called adjusting.
So breaking the rules while you were a priest were the only thing that kept you sane.
A little bit, yeah. Might as well say that. Kept me laughing too, because I realized what was really important in life, and it isn't about rules and regulations and stuff to that effect. I mean, give you an example. I used to bring communion to the prisoners at the county jail. Now, theoretically, you're supposed to wear your black suit, the collar, and you're supposed to have a stole around you because you're carrying the Blessed Sacrament. Well, I look like a nut walking into the county jail. So I used to wear a flannel shirt and get the Blessed Sacrament in the pocket of my shirt. And I would go in because I'm going to be sitting down with people and talking and rapping and those kind of stuff. And Jesus didn't mind. We just kind of, we're sharing everything. So I brought communion. Nobody worried about it. Till the bishop found out and I got suspended again.
How many times were you suspended?
Well, about 6 or 7 times. What are you going to do?
That's all? I find that surprising.
Yeah, I stopped counting. But you learn to look at things differently. And I bring that into the other areas of my life because I'm realizing in recovery is a great gift. It's taught me the art of adjusting, the art of being able to function and be able to do what I have to do. And you never know the circumstances you're in, the situations that you're in. You have to adjust to them. Do you always agree with everything? No. But you realize the fact this is just the reality of what is. You have to make some adjustments sometimes. And adjustments are part of life. And so you look at the concept of things and how we look at things in different directions. So it's the same thing as regards, recovery or working on your life. When you're in recovery, you got to make adjustments too. I mean, John will tell you, I'll tell you, when you first get in, you have the honeymoon stage, which is normal, like a marriage, and you're going to go to 500 meetings, and you're going to take the meetings everywhere and help everybody. And then you go from the honeymoon stage to the reality stage. Then from the reality stage to the adjustment stage. And you adjust to the concept of life on a daily, everyday basis. It's life. So we do that in marriage. We do it in every area of our life. When you're somebody new, when I first became a prison chaplain, I was scared to death going into the prison. I don't know what I was. Of course, people would tell me, "What'd you take that job for? You're going to get this. You're going to get that." All the fears were put. I walked in the door, and after 5 or 6 times being there, it felt like home. I adjusted. Like everything else in life, you adjust. But when you're doing something new, a lot of times you think that, I'm never going to be able to adjust to it, but then you do. That's about any kind of newness in life. So it's all part of it. When I went to recovery for my eating disorder, went to my first 12-step meeting. I don't want to go. I went to the OA program. I went to the HAL program, and I joined it. I don't want to join it, but I joined it because too many people pushed me to join it. But then after a period of time, I adjusted to it, and then I liked it. It's amazing, isn't it? But sometimes you got to get that nudge, get moving. Because some of us, some of us have harder heads than others. And we're always trying to figure it out. And I think the biggest part is letting go of control is a big part of it too. Come right down to it. That's life. And so people in recovery know what I'm talking about because even in AA and different places, you got to make adjustments constantly to work through different situations. It's all part of it. Sometimes we have business meetings. Sometimes we have controversy in business meetings. I mean, good guy. I went to an Al-Anon business meeting one time, and they spent an hour and 15 minutes discussing one word in the literature. I was ready to scream and run out the door. But see, that's life. Come on. That's the humanness of it. It's a big part of it. And things are going to happen. You're going to make mistakes, but we have a way of working through it. That's why, thank God, they put the traditions in to teach us boundaries and how to keep things in perspective. That's part of it. You go through it. And so, I mean, come on. I think we all have to realize we gotta live and celebrate life and loosen up a little bit and relax. Are there a couple of questions in the chat? I see two things down there.
Dave put in that he did the inner child with you and 7 others in 2004. And he just did the 5th step with his father in April, before he passed in April. He was 93 years old. And one other thing is that he has a picture of his group with the inner child,
Oh, wow.
and he wanted to thank you.
Oh, thank you. That's neat. I'll have to take a look at that afterwards. Thank you so much. That's neat. Okay. It's just, it's an honor just to be able to be around people and connect with people and be able to celebrate people. It's an honor, and yeah, okay. I mean, sometimes people go off the deep end, and maybe they need a lifeline to get them back up again and get started again. That's part of it. I mean, last time I checked, I don't think anybody's perfect. You might think you are, but you're not. Sorry. I don't believe that, man. Keep checking, keep looking in that mirror. All of a sudden see things differently. I look in the mirror now, I'm beginning to see my father in the mirror. Oh, well, it's okay. I like my dad. So maybe that's pretty good there. But it's funny how things change. I was talking to one of the guys that works in the other building, and we were just yakking today. He's just turned 78. And he said, I know you're 84, he said, but believe me, I'm not trying to catch up to you. I said, well, let me tell you a secret. I said, if you do catch up to me, I'll be 90. So we'll come down and have the same conversation again. You keep trying to catch up. So we're laughing and carrying on, And what I'm learning is as you get older, you kind of laugh at life a little bit more. You loosen up, and we all have stuff in our life. We have things in our life that maybe we're dealing with, families, different situations, stuff to that effect, So we do the best we can. We try to stay in balance. My Eating Disorder program talks about balance all the time. That's in every aspect of life. Keep balance, so it's part of it. Part of the things we have to do. There's sad stories too, a lot of sad stories. One of the saddest stories of all I ever experienced, and I still cry about it sometimes today. A gentleman I met down in South Philadelphia, right after he was a Vietnam vet, and went through hell in Vietnam, and was into drugs and everything else. So when he got out, I was able to get him into the VA hospital in Coatesville. He was in there for 6 months. Went out of the hospital. He finally got sober. He's real active in the South Philadelphia group. He's doing really good. I think, God, what did Billy have? I think it was somewhere around maybe 16 months sobriety. Then he came to me one day and he said something that scared the crap out of me. He said, I think I got it, Vince, finally. I think I got it together. He said, you know what I'm going to do? He said, I want to go down to the bar on Tasker Avenue and just go and see my old buddies and show them how good I'm doing. You're going to go talk to a bunch of drunks and tell them how good you're doing. He said, don't worry about it, though. I got this. I'm only going to drink soda. That's all. Well, I talked to I was blue in the face trying to convince him not to go, but he went. And while he was down there, his buddies decided he wasn't having enough fun and decided to spike one of his drinks. He went off to the races. And the sad part about it is, he ended up on the street and he died on the street. He never came back. Life is something you can't play with. You can't think you got it. I always remembered that. I remember those words, you got it. No, none of us got it. We got to work at it a little bit at a time every day. A couple of days ago, I posted on Facebook one of my favorite readings, and it's about two of the main principles of recovery. The one is one day at a time. Live your life one day at a time. Do the best you can do for today. None of us know a thing about tomorrow, so don't worry about tomorrow. Yesterday's over. Hopefully we'll learn from it and grow from it. But live today to the best of your ability. The other one is, but for the grace of God. Always realize when you see anything in your life, be thankful and but for the grace of God. And realize it could be you. Take nothing for granted. Things can change in a second. You never know what's going to happen. A good friend of mine told the story about how he was living in a mobile park, and he's doing fairly well. And he had moved down south and he was doing really good. And then a tornado came through one day and he found the remnants of his house 6 blocks away. And everything he had in his life was gone. He had to start from scratch all over again. He ended up living in a shelter for 2 years. Him and his wife. They had a hard time. But he did work his way back. And finally, he said to me, though, that's when I heard about the story. He said, I came back east. He said, I can't take that tornado alley anymore. He said, he went through hell. But he's doing better now. He's got a job. They have a place to live. And then they struggled through it. Who knows? In an instant, his life changed. None of us know. It's all part of it. So we got to even learn to be grateful for the things we have. Grateful for life. That's why I always love the old timers. I always talk about the elders in my thing. They'll listen to them. They passed it on. And they used to say simple things. They used to, if you wake up, be grateful you're awake. Congratulations. Do the best you can during the course of the day. At night, say thank you for the day and go to sleep. Can't keep any simpler than that. Are you gonna change the world during the course of the day? No, you're not. The world we live in is chaotic. It's crazy. There's all kinds of stuff that goes on. I don't want to get into that nonsense. But then people thrive on it. They go back and forth. Those craziness and insanity. But you know what? We forget there's something greater in charge. And everything finds its way. Once again, study history. Every empire went up and it went down. Went up and it went down. We get too cocky. We got to pay the price for a little while. So, welcome to the world. So it's all part of the process we go through.
You talk about the world, Vincent. You also always say, "Don't worry." How do you avoid, or how do you work not to worry about your children, your grandchildren, are facing a different world than we had?
Well, a long time ago, I think our parents, my parents anyway, your parents probably too, through the Depression, the Second World War, thought about what's the future's going to be like. And we came through it. So I don't care what the situation is, somehow, some way, if you work on yourself and work within the way you are, but worrying about it's not going to change it. I can't believe half the things my father and my mother came through. They worked hard. They did what they could do. But basically, they had rally around other people. People helped each other, took care of one another. Sometimes a crisis really brings us closer to each other. Who knows? So it's not my job to worry about my grandkids. I love them. I wish them well on their journey, but it's their journey. It's going to be their world. Yeah, you got to turn it over to them and let them go on. Where it's going to go, I don't know. Will they be flying cars and maybe beam me up Scotty or all that kind of stuff and everything? I don't know. I don't want to know. Because that'll be their journey in their world and they're on it. And maybe they're going to handle it better than we did. I don't know. But see, we worry about things that we're powerless over. Go back to that first step. Part of life. So you go with the flow and see what happens. You're going to have debates all day long. That's why, one thing I try to stay away from is politics and religion. Oh my God. I got into trouble a couple of times. I was invited to go to a Bible study. And it was one of these strong, and they were talking about rules and regulations, stuff to this effect, and quoting the scripture, what the scripture says, and all that. And I, of course, I have to open my big mouth. And I said, well, did you ever study the history of this stuff, where it comes from? Go back to the time of Jesus. You want to go back to the Jewish traditions, the Jewish concepts were going on back then? I said, some of these guys that wrote these things probably today would refer to as a male chauvinist pig, because back then women had no rights at all. Everything was written in a male tone. And basically even people debated over whether Jesus was married or not. I don't know. But the concept is, if you follow a Jewish tradition back then, men, if they weren't married by the time they were 14 and 15, were looked down upon. It was normal back then. Everything was different. So whenever you look at anything in life, look at it through the eyes of history. Look at the big book. Look at the 12 steps through the eyes of history. When it was written, the traditions, the stuff that was going on at that time. You can't just make blanket statements about this and about that, and then condemn this and condemn that. You can't do it, because you got to look back. Remember Jesus even said, the woman caught in adultery. Back in Jewish tradition, if a woman was caught in adultery, she was stoned to death. Nothing happened to the man, but she got stoned to death. But the bottom line was, basically, today, do we stone women to death when they get caught in the act of adultery? I don't think so. So basically, how come we aren't doing that anymore? If you get real direct about it. But see, the concept is, you have to be able to make those adjustments. Everything adjusts to the world you live in today, to the things of today, things in different directions. And one thing that drives me crazy, everybody wants to go back. I want to go back to the way it was, way back in the 40s and 50s, because it was perfect back then. It was. Nobody ever heard of Hitler? The Second World War, First World War, depressions, all kinds of stuff. Oh, some of the crazy stuff that went on about, gangs and stuff that they were. So what's new? I don't want to go back. It's a journey. So I'm on my journey, you're on your journey, we're all on a journey, and I checked. Now, John may prove me wrong, and maybe David will too, but I checked. We got a round trip ticket. And someday the second half is going to get punched. Congratulations. No matter what you do, you can do the anti-aging cream, you can do all this kind of stuff and everything else, but guess what? You're going to age. Boom. Okay, so it's about the outside. Go to the inside. That's what's important. Spirit. What's inside.
Vince, you're talking about the changes over time. The 12 steps and the traditions are holding even in different times. Do you see that moving forward?
Yeah, they made some adjustments based on what 12-step program they're in, just wording adjustments. But other than that, they've held, there have been different editions of the big book of AA, and they made some adjustments in more modern terms and stuff to that effect. Took out the these and the thous and all that, kept moving it, but the foundations and the basics are still the same. And there's always another edition, stuff to that effect. So it's all part of it. So.
But the basics, the steps, self-inventory and amends and all will hold.
Foundations are still the same. Some of the wording might be changed around, made more modern to fit society of today. Today, good God, pick this thing up, right? I got the big book on here. I got the basic text on here. I got everything. At nighttime, my nighttime meditation, my 12-step meditations are on here. I got an app pretty soon to be an app for going to the bathroom. I don't know what's going to be next. There's an app for everything. So basically, recovery's got I got like 19 different apps on recovery in here. You got Charlie's tapes. I got all the different speakers from different places and everything. At your fingertips. Now, do we have that back in 1940 and 1950? No. We had radio. That's all we had back then. I was there, so I know. Yeah. So the concept is, look at my own life. I went from radio to a computer in your wristwatch. And now you answer the phone right here. My wife has hearing aids. She puts the hearing aids on. They're very modern. No matter where she is, the telephone messages come right through the hearing aids. Yeah. You got an app for everything now. Now what happens is if we lose the app, we're in trouble. We just get another app. It's all part of it. But now is that dependency? Yeah, it is. Before this was the encyclopedia. We're dependent on that. I feel sorry for the encyclopedia salesmen that they lost their jobs. But we have a set here. It used to belong to my wife's mother. Why do we keep it? Nostalgia. That's what it comes down to. And if we die and it goes to the kids, you know what the kids will do with it? First of all, they probably won't even know what it is. I get a kick out of that. You have to laugh. I told you the story when my grandson got married. And we basically went to the wedding. Of course, he had a disc jockey that was 19 years old, one of his college buddies. And the guy was playing all that music, Everybody's jumping and dancing, The song was about an hour and a half long and never stopped. So finally, I went up to the disc jockey and I said, can I ask you a question? He said, there's some old people here. I said, how about a couple nice, soft, slow songs like, little Frank Sinatra or Dean Martin? He looked at me and he said, who are they? I said, for real? He said, yep, never heard of them. I wanted to jump over the bandstand and go at him. Never heard of them, but I understand that. They don't know what you're talking about. So the concept is things change. So now you have to adjust to what their stuff is. My granddaughter went to a concert where there were 50,000 people at the concert down in Morgantown, and she told me the names of the group. I can't even pronounce the names. I don't know. I never heard of them. But the bottom line is that they must be the in crowd if they drew 50,000 people. So what can I tell you? I go back to the Tower Restaurant in Camden, the Tower Theater in Camden on Broadway every Sunday afternoon. They had a stage show. They had Frank Sinatra, Dean Martin, Sid Caesar, Imogene Coca. There was a different star there every week. I when I went there as a kid, all the kinds of Louis Armstrong and his orchestra, they're all there. It was just a different world. But I grew up in the big band era. My father and I used to go to the Steel Pier and listen to the big bands. And we had a great time down there because you paid $1, for the whole day. And everything else was free in the Steel Pier. It was wonderful. But things change. Not that way anymore. I went to a World Series game in 1950 when the Yankees played the Phillies. I was at the third game of the World Series. The tickets were $12. Because that was a lot of money back then. But the bottom line is, can you get a $12 ticket today? I don't think so. And as a kid, 10 years old, my uncle took me to the game. I still remember every inning and everything of that game. I never forgot it. Because I got the opportunity to see Joe DiMaggio hit a home run in the 10th inning to win the game. I never thought in my life I'd get to see Joe DiMaggio play. You know, to me, that's an honor. You know, and guess what his salary was back in 1950, Joe DiMaggio? He made $90,000 a year. Now today they probably have to franchise the team and give him part ownership of it. Yeah. So who knows where things go, what direction? You know, we had Wooly Puttenhead Jones. I don't know if you ever remember him or not. Anybody remember Wooly Puttenhead Jones? He was the third baseman for the Phillies back in 1950 when they were the Whiz Kids. And Wooly Puttenhead, they used to call him. He was a little crazy. Great guy, though. But he lived in Camden. He was one of our neighbors. In the wintertime, because he didn't make that much money in the summer playing ball, so in the wintertime, he was a clerk, a clerk at Food Fair. He worked at Food Fair all winter. You know, went back and played ball in the summer. You know, crazy. My friend Johnny Blanchard, who was in recovery, used to play for the Yankees. Johnny used to be a salesman in the wintertime. He would sell tires and all kinds of stuff in the wintertime. That was beautiful, the concept of it. So it's just something you really have to look at in the format of it. That's important. Okay? I don't know. I could, you want to talk about stories? I'll stay all night and talk about them. I don't care. I love stories. I really do. I think that's what life is. You guys got your stories. We'll do a series one night. Have you guys tell your stories? It'll be a fun part of it.
Vince, where did you learn how to tell stories? Because there's a technique to that.
I never learned it. I just did it. I guess I learned from the old timers in the program that they told stories all the time of what they went through. And there's always people telling stories at meetings, and you pick up experiences from that. So I don't know. You want to say, did somebody teach me a technique on how to do it? I don't know. I don't know. Is there a technique? If there is one, I can get it. Maybe I have to go look at what's a YouTube channel and see if it teaches me how to tell stories.
I'm sure there is a channel for that.
Probably is one, I'm sure. That's okay. I get to have fun this Sunday because I speak at the 400 Club on Sunday. And I get to have fun with all the younger kids in the program. I call them younger kids. They're in their 20s and 30s. I call them the younger kids in the program. And I love going there. I just love having fun with them. You know, they cut me up, I cut them up. We have a good time. What can I tell you? Because they tell me I dress like an old man. I said, I'm an old man. That's why I dress like an old man. I told them, what do you expect me to dress like you? You got those jeans on, they're all ripped up. I said, we use them to wash cars with. The girl looked at me. I paid $95 for these jeans. I says, they saw you coming. And we go back and forth. And I made a deal with them. I said, you come to my talks, you tie your shoes. The guys all walk in with the sneaks on untied. So now in my honor, they all tie their shoes when they come to my talks. And they get proud of that. They stand there and go, look, they're tied, they're tied. But see, that's what it's all about, having fun. Do the best you can do, it's all, you know. Will things always work? No, you know. Got a golf tournament coming up. Will it work? Yeah, it'll work. But how it'll work, it'll work. Whatever's going to be, it's going to be. Do the best you can do, and then do what you got to do. Always remember, Michael the Archangel's always there. He's right there on my desk. He's waving at me right now. The big part about it. So prayer, meditation, contact, and just kind of be yourself the best you can. And say a prayer for me tonight, okay, guys? Because guess what? I'm going to sleep in a bed for the first time in 2.5 months. This should be an experience. I contacted Amazon yesterday, and they sent me this thing that you put at the end of the bed so you can elevate your feet. I forget what it's called. Yeah, it looks nice anyway. So here we go, a little experiment tonight. I'm excited. I can't help it. I'm tired of. I'm getting tired of the recliner.
It's time.
I'm beginning to think I have an indentation in the recliner now. Oh, well. Well, listen, thanks a lot, guys. So I remind you that next week we're going to start the series on codependency again. I do it at least once a year. And I'll go through that whole process of the stuff I did in the book. And we'll work on that. So I'm going to close with a prayer, just to say a gratitude prayer. Dear God, thank you so much, the God of our understanding, our divine presence. Thank you for all the memories, for all the things we've experienced in life. Thank you for the things that will come. But thank you for yesterday. Thank you for tomorrow. Thank you for today. Teach us to be people of love, people of faith. Teach us not to be afraid to ask for help, guidance, and direction in all that we do. And to realize it's just a journey. Enjoy the journey that you're on. It's the one you're supposed to be on. Teach us that, please. And realize there's a purpose behind everything in life. I pray every day that we can be open to it, open to God's will, and open to the journey. And just be grateful wherever it happens to take us. So we pray and we ask this every day. We pray it in your name. Amen.